Welcome to the Widows Collective, where grief meets hope, healing, and community. I'm Lauren Lentz, grief coach, fellow widow, and the heart behind this space. There is life before loss, and then there is life after. If you're here, it likely means your life has been turned upside down by the death of your person. Maybe you've just found yourself in this new world that feels unrecognizable, or maybe you've been walking it for a while, trying to figure out what healing looks like now. I want you to know you are not alone. This podcast is a gathering place for widows living in the after. Together, we'll name the ache, honor the love, and share tools, truths, and stories that help you feel supported along the way. My hope is that every episode gives you a sense of community, comfort, and permission to meet yourself exactly where you are. Hello, and welcome back to episode 16. What do love languages and support have in common? I think I could talk about grievers and support forever. The dynamic between them is so much more complex than we often realize. What I'm sharing in this episode really just scratches the surface of support and grief. There is no way to fully capture all the nuances, the misunderstandings, the moments of comfort, and the moments of harm that can happen between a griever and their support system. Every relationship is different. Every loss is different, and what feels supportive to one person or even to the same person at a different time can change. So as you listen, I invite you to take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and trust your own experience. Today, I want to talk about something that comes up again and again inside sessions, in messages, and in my own personal reflections as well. It's this strange, often painful experience many grievers have when people are showing up. They're trying, they care, and yet the support still doesn't land. You might find yourself thinking, why does this feel so wrong when everyone is trying so hard? Why am I pulling away when I know they mean well? Or even, I don't know what I need and their offers of support feel like another thing I don't have the capacity to manage. If that's ever been you, I want to stay here together for a bit because I think there's a missing piece in this conversation. Most of us are familiar with the idea of love languages, words of affirmation, acts of service, quality time, gifts, physical touch. They help us understand that people give and receive love differently. But grief complicates this. And when I say grief changes the rules, what I mean is this. Just like love, support has a language. And in grief, we are often speaking very different ones at very different volumes, at very different levels of emotional availability. I want to explore what love languages and support have in common, why grief so often creates a painful mismatch between intention and impact, and how emotional availability or lack of it can quietly deepen that disconnect. Just like love, support is communicated in different ways. Some people offer support through action, doing, fixing, organizing, solving. Others through words, talking, reassuring, processing, explaining. And then others through presence, sitting close, checking in, staying nearby. None of these are wrong. They're simply different languages. But here's where grief enters the picture. In grief, the language someone offers support in isn't always the language the griever can receive. Someone may be offering advice because that's how they show care, while the griever may be needing quiet presence or no response at all. Someone may want to talk and process, while the griever system may not yet have access to the words. Both are acts of love, but they're spoken in different languages. And when the languages don't match, support can start to feel frustrating, overwhelming, or even painful, despite the best intentions. Another layer that often goes unnamed in grief is emotional availability. And this is where most support often breaks down. We tend to assume that the supporter is more emotionally available than the griever, that the griever is shut down, numb, or overwhelmed. But very often the opposite is true. Grief can open someone to extraordinary emotional depth. I see it all the time, and I've experienced it myself. There's this rawness, honesty, a longing to be met in the truth of what's happening. And the people around them, despite caring deeply, may not have the capacity to go there. They may want things to feel lighter. They may need reassurance that you'll be okay. They may try to move forward, cheer you up, or offer perspective. Not because they don't care, but because sitting in that depth feels frightening, unfamiliar, or unbearable for them. So the griever reaches out looking for resonance and instead meets avoidance, minimization, fixing, silence. And that moment can feel devastating, not just lonely, but really feeling misunderstood. This is often when grievers start editing themselves, shortening their truth, softening their grief, or stopping altogether. Not because they don't need support, but because they've learned their depth has nowhere to go. In these moments, the mismatch isn't about effort. It is about capacity. And grief has a way of revealing emotional limits, both our own and others. When support doesn't align, it can quietly create more work for the griever, and that work isn't always obvious. Grievers often carry not only their own grief, but the emotional weight of navigating other people's responses, managing expectations and emotions of those trying to help, deciding how or whether to respond to offers, explaining needs when they don't yet know what those needs are, or reassuring their support system that their effort is appreciated while barely keeping their own head above water. It makes sense that this can feel exhausting. It can feel unfair and frustrating, even isolating. Many grievers notice themselves thinking, why doesn't anyone really get this? Or why can't they just understand what I need? Those feelings are completely valid. Grief is hard enough without needing to manage the emotional load of the support system too. And it's important to name this. Sometimes support really does miss the mark. Supporters may act in ways that feel small, disconnected, or even unhelpful. At the same time, supporters are often acting from their own limits. They're unsure, afraid of making things worse, or emotionally unable to go as deep as the griever needs. This is where the mismatch lives between intention and impact, effort and capacity. So the griever may pull back, not because they don't want connection, but because the cost of receiving support is high in that moment. And supporters may pull back, not because they don't care, but because they feel unsure or inadequate. Both experiences can be true at the same time. And yet, acknowledging the griever's experience, how it feels to be seen, yet not met, is crucial. It's okay to feel frustrated or disappointed. It's okay to notice when support isn't doing its intended job. Naming this dynamic doesn't dismiss your feelings. It validates them while also opening space to explore how support might shift, soften, or reconnect in ways that actually meet you where you are. There's an opportunity here, a gentle moment of accountability in this conversation, especially for those offering support. Grief invites us to pause and ask, am I offering support in the way I know how, or in the way this person can actually receive it right now? Those two things aren't always the same, and that's okay. Adjusting how we show up doesn't mean getting it perfect. It doesn't mean abandoning ourselves. It doesn't mean fixing grief. It does mean noticing. It does mean slowing down, and it does mean staying curious rather than certain. It's also important to recognize that support is a shared responsibility. It's not the griever's job to educate, guide, or manage the emotional needs of everyone around them while they are also surviving loss. At the same time, grief invites both sides into discomfort. For supporters, this often shows up as feeling unsure how to respond, worrying about saying the wrong thing, feeling helpless or overwhelmed when efforts seem to miss the mark. And those feelings are completely normal. They're not failures. They're signals that you're encountering something bigger than your usual comfort zone. Part of adjusting the support language is learning to tolerate that discomfort. It means noticing, I feel anxious because I can't fix this. I feel awkward because I don't know what to say. I feel discouraged because my support isn't being received the way I hoped. And allowing yourself to stay present anyway. Even small adjustments can create enormous relief. Offering low pressure check-ins, I'm here if you need me, or I'd be happy to drop a coffee off on your doorstep instead of what do you need? Asking permission before jumping in with advice or action. Respecting quiet or space when that seems to be what the griever is communicating to you. Noticing when you can't go as deep emotionally and letting the griever know in a caring way. So for example, I want to be here for you and I may not have the right words right now, but I'm listening. Expanding your capacity for emotional discomfort doesn't require perfection. It simply requires breathing through your tension. Accepting that feeling unsettled is human. Showing up in ways that are small, consistent, and aligned with what the griever can actually receive. This practice doesn't just help the griever, it strengthens your own emotional resilience. It teaches all of us that support isn't about fixing or performing. It's about being present even when it's uncomfortable and adjusting along the way. And for grievers, recognizing this dynamic doesn't require you to take responsibility for teaching others. It simply means noticing patterns, acknowledging mismatches, and if it feels safe, communicating small preferences when you can. It also allows you to step back and let compassion come in for the people who may be taking the missteps, who may not know what to do. Sending them love and grace is really important here too. When both sides cultivate awareness, curiosity, and tolerance for discomfort, support has a larger chance to be truly received. Even small, imperfect efforts can make a huge difference. One of the hardest parts about support and grief is that its impact isn't always obvious. Sometimes even the most well-intentioned gestures can leave a subtle residue of exhaustion or tension. Maybe someone keeps checking in, and each time the griever has to decide, can I say yes? Do I need help? Or will this create more work? Maybe someone withdraws, and the griever is left with a quiet sense of abandonment, even if no one meant harm. These invisible dynamics can leave both sides frustrated. The griever feels misunderstood or unseen. The supporter feels like nothing they do is enough. Recognizing this invisible weight is actually liberating. It allows both sides to step back and notice patterns instead of blaming, and it invites small, practical changes that can make a huge difference. Checking in without expectation, offering presence rather than solutions, sitting in the space, letting grief be messy. Noticing energy and availability, being honest with yourself and with the griever about what you can actually give. Receiving feedback gently, listening to how your support lands without overreacting. Support doesn't need to be monumental. Sometimes the most meaningful gestures are quiet, invisible ones that match what the griever can actually receive in the moment. That moment here is that we can all do something, even if it's small, and it can matter immensely. If there's one thing I hope you take from today, it's this. When support doesn't show up the way that you expected it to, it's rarely because it's a lack of love. It's often because language, timing, and emotional availability are out of sync. That doesn't make anyone bad or broken. It makes us human, trying to reach each other in unfamiliar territory. For grievers, you don't need clarity to be worthy of support. You don't need the right words to deserve care. For supporters, presence matters more than perfection. curiosity matters more than certainty. Grief asks something different of all of us, and sometimes simply naming what's happening is enough to create a little more space, understanding, and gentleness on both sides so that we can keep showing up for each other even when it's hard. This episode resonated today. I want to encourage you to like, share, or send it to someone in your support system if you feel safe enough to do so. Sometimes just opening a conversation about how support looks different for all of us can be healing for both sides. And if you're navigating early grief and you want a little extra guidance, my self-guided program Through the Fog is now open. You can find more information at laurenlentz.com and click on the tab Through the Fog. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for continuing to show up even when it's hard. Until next time, sending you big hugs and lots of love. You've been listening to the Widows Collective. I'm Lauren Lentz, and it means so much to me that you spent this time here today. If you found comfort or connection in today's episode, I invite you to please subscribe, leave a rating, or share it with someone who might need a little support. You can also follow me on Instagram at I'm Sorry We're Friends and join my email list at laurenlentz.com to explore my one-to-one grief coaching, group program, retreats, and other tools designed to help widows navigate loss with understanding and guidance. I hope you'll join me next week for another conversation where we'll continue exploring grief, healing, and ways to reimagine life after loss. I'm sorry you're here, and I'm so grateful that you are. Thank you for being a part of this community. Your presence is an act of courage and self-compassion, and I'm honored to walk this path alongside you.